Hey, I want to welcome our viewers. We're on the non-golf side, Kennesaw Happenings, but we'll always throw in some golf analogies because golf's such a wonderful sport. But
Mm.
on the our guest, I couldn't sleep last night. I was telling him right before we came on. I usually get up at 4, but I had to get up at 2:30 because I had whales and sardines jumping through my brain. So we're going to get into some really why that makes sense and really help our viewers understand 80/20 in a simple matter, because I think our guest really breaks it down into areas that I think you'll understand. So Neil, thank you so much for being a guest. Just tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve out there, and then we'll get into a little bit of whales and sardines.
Sure, Pete. And thanks very much for having me on. You know, that may be the first time I've ever kept somebody awake with whales and sardines, but it's good. It's so great to hear that captured your imagination and so on. So I'm based in Ireland. I grew up here. I studied management accounting, which is geared towards actually doing costings, and that's what led me on to profitability. I spent some time in London. I actually lived in Florida for a year, and then came back to Ireland. So I call myself a recovering accountant, okay? Because even though I love numbers, after working as an accountant for a number of years, I started getting a bit bored with the routine side of it. But one amazing thing happened to me when I was working as an accountant. I stumbled on 80/20. I was working for this electronics company. We made subcontract electronic parts for the likes of Dell and Apple and so on. And we had 36 customers. So I did this big analysis. I said, I want to work out the net profit or loss by customer. And when it was finished, what we discovered was pretty remarkable, because 3 out of 36 customers were giving this business 91% of net profits. Wow. 3. And 18 of them were losing money. So I started calling the profitable ones whales and the loss makers sardines. And I started doing this analysis for lots of different businesses because I wasn't sure, does this just apply to the electronics company? And I discovered over the years that it applies to every single business. So in a nutshell, every single business has a smallish number of very profitable customers, clients, and it has a much larger number of loss makers. And if you do the analysis to work that out, what you can do with that information can completely transform the profits of your business. Because if you start taking out sardines that are, if you think about it, they're a negative, and replace them with a whale, which is a big positive, you're getting a double whammy every time. So one quick example, I did this for a printer. Once we started changing that mix and they went after more whales, 12 months later, their sales went up 23%, but their profits more than doubled. They had the same number of customers, but the mix of whales to sardines had changed. More whales, less sardines. And it's powerful.
Just to jump in, because our viewers always like to know your journey. So how many years ago did you transition from the accounting side of it to a more strategic side with analyzing businesses?
Yeah. So I worked as an accountant for 15 years, and I've worked as a consultant for 20 years. So, but it was this moment when I discovered 80/20. Like, I knew my days as an accountant were numbered because, like you last night, like not being able to get to sleep, right? Yeah. I was so excited by this because, like, and you might know some of the background to this, Pete. I mean, it's not something 80/20 isn't something somebody made up. It's a naturally occurring law. It applies to, if you go to your wardrobe in the morning and you're deciding, open it up, decide what you're going to wear. We probably wear a smallish number of clothes all the time because we have our favorites, and other stuff doesn't get worn or gets worn once a year. It applies to the traffic on the roads, populations in the world, number of countries. China and India have a huge percentage of the world's population, wealth, and so on. It applies everywhere. And I suppose I focus mostly on the business side and the profitability side because it can transform a business.
I absolutely agree. I geek out on it, but I never was able to geek out with pictures and analogies like whales and sardines. Yeah. So I got first introduced, Richard Koch, but then Perry Marshall with the 80-20, and I was in his program for a year or maybe two.
Yeah.
And so I really got into understanding more. But what I like about what you're teaching is you're teaching it in simple concepts. So let's just jump into golf just for the sake, because I have a lot of golf viewers.
Yeah.
So, when explain to people what you think a whale and a sardine is in golf terms. Would you share something that maybe they can understand?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm a big golf fan. Okay. I grew up right next to a golf course in Ireland. Okay. So I love golf. I mean, I suppose putting could be maybe the best example, isn't it? Like if you go to a driving range, what club are people using? They're taking out their driver. They want to whack that.
Yeah.
Even though they don't want to, they're going to change the ball in 2030. No, so it doesn't go as far, right? But so like most people if you're there half an hour before your round, most people go to the driving range and they'll whack balls, okay, and they won't spend much time on the putting green. Whereas percentage-wise, a small improvement in your putting will bring your score down much quicker than a bigger change in your driving. Yeah. So that's just one example. Or, if chipping, if you're struggling with your chipping and you go and practice it, it probably will improve and it'll bring your score down by a few shots. So like this is 80-20. It applies everywhere, Pete. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about let's take our viewers through. Okay. So you're in that 16th year, you're shifting to consulting.
Yeah.
What do you like? Give them a few ideas of where you're taking people through, because you took me through a video, whales and sardines. I mean, it absolutely hit me between the eyes. But let's say somebody's out there, hey, they've heard of 80-20, but they have a business. Now, where are you starting them?
Yeah, well, step one is the analysis. There's no getting away from it. You're going to have to take your set of accounts, like a profit and loss, and you're going to have to break that down by client. So I'll give you an example. A printer I worked with on average, they had 60 customers a month. Okay. So I had the profit and loss. So you start breaking it out. You want to allocate your sales and costs. So down the bottom, you have a net profit or loss by customer. Okay. So there's no you have to do the analysis. Now, the exciting part is what you do with that information. And just sticking with the printer as an example, he discovered that he had 2 hospitals and a college. They actually gave him 145% of his net profit. Now, that doesn't seem, how can you get more than 100, right? So if the profit is, for a year, it was just over 100,000, 145 came from 3 customers. And then you have a bunch in the middle. We call them dolphins sometimes, right? The dolphins are in the middle and they're giving you smaller profits. And it's like, it's like steps of the stairs, Pete. If you imagine the steps of the stairs, you work out your profitability analysis by customer. Almost every client has a different, and it goes down and down and down. And when you get the bottom third of the stairs, you're then into minus. Okay. So he actually had a big bunch of customers and they were losing about 60%. 60%. So you start taking them out. And I tell a story. I wrote a book a few years ago about Mrs. Murphy. Okay. This woman came along for her grandson's 21st birthday party. And the printer came out and sat down with her because his father dealt with her mother and, all this kind of stuff. He spent half an hour with her. Then she went away. She wanted her daughter to look at it. So her daughter was emailing the printer, we'll change this. All these steps were going on. Okay. And then the printer had to set up the printer, run them through, cut them, packaging, invoice, right? You have all these steps going on. That woman was charged 70 euros. Okay. And they worked it out. It should have been 200. It should have been 200 for all the time they went into it. So that's how sardines happen. The sales you get from doesn't cover all the cost that goes in. And quite often small customers or anything that's complex, it's different. You have to put all these steps into it. Generally speaking, they lose money. The hospitals came along once. The printer sat down with them, went through all the steps. They came back every month with large orders. He didn't have to go through all those steps again. So they were very profitable. But the thing about it is he had to free up. We doubled the price on those small one-off orders and then doubled it again. So the next time a Mrs. Murphy came along, instead of 70, it was 200. Now, she wasn't going to pay that, so we sent her off to our competitor. It was kind of funny because they welcomed them with open arms, but that freed up the printer to go and talk to his hospitals, and he discovered he did 2 forms for them every month. He discovered they got over 70 forms printed every month. and he was getting 2 of them. So in the course of the next few months, he got 2 more. So of course that brought his whales way up. And because he got rid of the sardines, he had time to go after more hospitals and colleges. And I'm wearing glasses, okay? When you do 80-20, it's like this. You're like this before 80-20. Oh my God, you never look at your business the same again, because you're marketing, you're not going to go after Mrs. Murphy. You don't want Mrs. Murphy who comes along once every 2 years and takes up all this time for 70 euros. You want the hospitals and colleges. So it totally transforms your marketing as well, much more laser focused.
What do it seems so simple. And, after watching your presentation on LinkedIn, I was like, it was like putting a set of glasses on and being crystal clear.
Absolutely.
For me, maybe I understand the concept. It just took a simple analogy of the sardines and the whales. What do people not grasp it when you start working with them and they say, yeah, I want more whales? And then is there a time that you work with them and they go, it doesn't click enough that they say, I think I'm going to go back to my old ways or back to another way?
Yeah.
Do you ever see that?
Yeah, unfortunately it does happen. And Pete, in business, we're almost trained to focus on the sales. We want sales. And I'll give you a quick story. I worked with an engineer before. I did the 80-20 analysis. I gave him a list of here's your whales and then a list of here's your sardines. So the idea is that you want to focus on the whales. And if a sardine approaches you and like this engineer used to do jobs for, let's say, schools. Okay, they're government jobs. It's a fixed price. It's a lower price than you'll get privately. It's fixed. If the school tells you, that building has, 4 walls this size and whatever, and you price it, and you go in, you find the 4 walls are actually they're 50% bigger because nobody told you, and you've all this extra cost. Okay, the public job will just say the price was 60 grand. That's it. So this engineer lost money on almost every government job they did. And I've seen this over and over again. So you give them the list, and then, I might go back a year later or whatever, and I realize, oh my God, they're still taking on these government jobs, even though because they were under pressure to get sales. So yeah, some people totally take it on board, and then others kind of forget about it. So maybe they need, maybe we all need a regular reminder of who the whales and sardines are, and that we focus on the profits. It's not about getting new sales. It's about getting profitable sales.
Yeah. I guess I read that first 80-20 book maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah. Richard Koch. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't really I understood it in the concept, but I think when Jeff, who introduced me to the dolphin and the shark concept, I was able to grasp, really that concept pretty easily. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years, I get introduced to you and you talk about, whales and sardines. I guess my question is, our brains are hardwired. When we grow up a certain way, business, you're doing a certain way. What do you see that challenge that you've seen with hardwired brains? What do they say? Like, Neil, tell our viewers, like those hardwired people that are used to doing a certain way, what would they really gain by understanding your concept?
Yeah. I suppose sometimes that we're hardwired with the sardines is sometimes what I do is I give people the analysis. Okay. I will advise them, but it's their business. I'm not going to tell somebody you have 30%, you have 100 clients, 30% of them are losing you money. It's up to the business owner to decide what to do with them. Sometimes they don't do anything with the sardines, and that's fine. Okay. Because, they don't want to upset people. So let's just go over and focus on the whales. If they just focus on, like, the printer was hospitals and colleges. With an IT company recently, they found out it was solicitors, okay? Because solicitors' data is so private, they need to protect their clients' data. They will pay extra for top IT security. So once you know who your whales are and you focus on grow your existing ones, okay? You don't have to be chasing new people all the time. If the whale is just sitting there, and if you go and talk to them, I bet you they will need more services. So the first thing to do is grow your existing whales, okay? You don't have to go find anyone else. But, when you're going after new customers and you know who your whales are, then please keep that in mind, okay? You don't want to just chase anybody. Ideally, if you know, like for that IT company, solicitor, and they've totally changed their marketing. So now they're looking for solicitors mostly, okay? They're not looking, they know they're so profitable. And on average, Pete, a whale is worth 16 sardines. 16 sardines. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
So that IT company, if they were just indiscriminately going after everybody and they go and sign 16, just we'll say non-solicitor clients, their software and their whatever, and then they go and sign one solicitor client, all right, in terms of profits, that could be worth the same as 16. Imagine the work in finding 16 new customers and setting them up and servicing them. Like it's, when you stop and think about it, it's like, it's insane, isn't it? The numbers.
Yeah. Oh, it really is fascinating. And it's hard to believe that somebody would go, no, I like these sardines and I just like eating those. But I know people are people pleasers. And I've heard well, Susie's a nice person and she's been with me for 40 years. Yes. And, so what would you say to for the people pleasing audience?
Look, you know what? I'll give them the information. It's not my job to be persuading or making people do something. It's their business. You give them the information. As I said, quite often with the sardines, I don't particularly push that as being an action in terms of prioritizing. Once we know the whales, the first thing I'll encourage people to do is you go talk to your existing, so the IT company, it was solicitors, okay, and they had some already. The first thing to do is you get on the phone, you go meet them for lunch or coffee, go and meet your existing whale customers, okay? Because almost guaranteed in the course of that conversation, you will find something will pop up. Oh yeah, we do that. You will sell more to your existing whales, okay? That's the first thing to do. Yes. And then with their marketing, I would encourage them, again, if it's the printer of his hospitals and colleges, I would strongly encourage them, you want to focus your marketing on finding new whales, okay? So those alone, okay, even if they leave the sardines, a lot of people do, okay, and that's fine, okay, it's their business. If they just focus on selling more to the existing whales and focus their marketing on finding new ones, okay, their profits, okay, will just start going. I'm not sure if I can do it, it'll start going like, it'll start going that way, like they use the term hockey stick. Is that a hockey stick? Yeah, that's an upward graph. Yeah, if you focus on selling more to existing whales and your marketing finding new ones, your profits will go like a hockey stick. But you won't necessarily have loads of extra clients because they'll be so profitable that your costs don't go through the roof. Your profits go up much, much faster than your costs.
Do you ever, with your clients, do you take it to the next level? Because I know Jeff had talked to me about going to 80-20 of the 80-20 of the 80-20 to keep upgrading. So do you walk your clients through that kind of thought process?
Yeah, absolutely. Like going back to the very first example, it said about the electronics company, out of 36 customers, 3 of them were whales. Well, within those 3, one of them was a super whale, because they were giving over 60% of the net profit. So absolutely. And the idea is you can focus it. You start off with your super whale in terms of focusing on them. Yeah. And then you go back to your whales. So yeah, there is, the other thing, just touch on very briefly, Pete, is you've read Perry Marsh's book, The Power, I love Richard Koch's book, The 80-20 Principle. I think he popularized 80-20. I think Perry's book just added layers to it. Okay. The power curve. You're familiar with the power curve is just absolutely incredible. That says if you have 100 customers spending $1,000 with you, $1,000, we'll say. I know I'm using euros, dollars. I'm sure people know 1,000. If 100 customers spending $1,000 with you per month, then 20 of them will spend 4,000 for a superior version of the same service. Mm-hmm. And then another 20% will spend 4 times. I know people who've applied that in their business. that's another whole level. Like, this is on top of, I'm saying, sell more to your whales, focus your marketing on your new whales. Another strategy that I do sometimes with people, and it's only a small number who really grasp this completely, is you now start creating new services for your whale clients. Because if you offer them, some of them will want them. But you have to offer them. You have to have, it's like going on the plane. If you jumped on a plane and they didn't have the first class and deluxe first class or whatever, then people wouldn't be able to give the airline the money. But they know that some people will spend multiples of what people down in, I travel in coach, or what are called coach, right? Economy class, right? I'm back there. But the people with the big money are, in first class, and they're super first class and whatever.
Yeah, Walker, you had that Tiger airline. I think the analogy was a post that you did on LinkedIn, and the standby person.
Oh, yeah.
Why they selected an individual. Walk our viewers through that.
Yeah, there was a bunch of people. There was a flight going, I think it was from London to Dublin or whatever, and it was overbooked. So there was a bunch of people. It was 20 odd people, whatever. They were waiting for there was one place on the plane, and there was a list of 20 people, right? And they're all waiting there for about an hour. And the next thing, this guy John rocks up half an hour before the plane was due to take off. So you think, well, he must be 21st on the list, right? Because he just came along.
Mm-hmm.
John got the seat on the plane. And why did John get the seat? Because the airline looked at it, and he had thousands and thousands of air miles. Okay, he flew with them regularly. He was flying every month. So the airline looked at it and said, well, actually, even though there's 20 people arrived before John, they viewed him as being a whale customer, and he got that place on the plane because they were looking after your whales. And this is, I see this a lot with accountants. I do a lot of work with accountants. And an accountant can have 500 clients, and somebody rings them, okay, with a query on their tax or whatever, and they will just drop everything and look after. Now, it's great for the customer. That customer might only be paying them like $300 a year, right? And then they phone 2 weeks later with another, and they will just look after them. Whereas, to me, it should be their whales are getting that level of service, okay? Because they're probably somebody paying 20 grand a year should get that service. But you don't feed a whale the same as a sardine, okay? And these accountants are run ragged, and they can't get staff because they're treating every client the same, which is great for the client, okay? But it's not great for the business. Like, you just can't run a business that way. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I totally agree. And I hear it all the time, and, just with new businesses and startups, and not new. No, I want to say new business, but mature businesses that are just kind of growing a tiny bit. They're inking out a little bit of an increase, and then they change that formula. And I know Jeff has really shared with me a lot of stories about how he changed the formula from, what you've just described, the whale and the sardines, and all of a sudden a hockey stick comes in. What would you say yourself? Like, I know because of your 20 years, you're looking at industries. Do you have favorite industries that have been good whales for you personally?
Yeah, I suppose the two sectors I probably work with most, Pete, are engineers, architects, those kind of service construction businesses, and actually accountants, or CPAs, maybe as you call them. They're the two I've done most work with. So I'm very, I can start with an engineer. I'm just going to hit the ground running because I know exactly where the challenges are and where the 80-20 is, right? Who the whales and sardines, like public jobs, okay? Like, I know before I go in the door, 9 times out of 10, if they do a job for the government, okay, they either lose money or don't make any profit, okay? Whereas if they're doing a job, say, for a pharmaceutical, okay, they generally are whale clients. They have bigger budgets, they have a higher spec, but they'll pay more for the same service as, say, a drinks company or a food company or a government job. So they're the sectors I know best. But I mean, listen, 80-20 applies to every business. Recently I've done some work for construction companies and a fabrication company. Look, it's universal, okay? It's just completely universal. when I do going through me doing the analysis, it's the same for an engineer, as an accountant, as a construction. It's the same steps. And then when you get the information, I'm advising them the same way. Who are your whales? Go talk to them. What's your marketing focused on? You know, for that IT company with solicitors, right? And accountants were good as well. You want solicitors, and it's great when you see people taken on board. That IT company now have a target to sign 10 new solicitors that have 50 or more people working for them in the next year. That is their goal. And it's great to see that, because I know the impact that's going to have on the business and on the profitability. And it's interesting too, because I've had a few conversations really recently with marketing people. One woman does branding, then she does strategy and 3-year marketing plan. Mm-hmm. And I asked her the question, because she I know she sees my posts on LinkedIn. So I said to her, how does profitability get factored in? And she knew the whales and sardines. I said, how does that get factored into your marketing strategy? And she said, well, I assume the owner of the business knows that. And I had to tell her, no, maybe if 5% do. So she was like, oh my God. And she wants to work with me, because she's saying, oh my God, we have to so I'm going to come in towards the start of her process, because why would you, unless you do that, unless you work out the whales and sardines, they're just going to go marketing probably for everybody. And you know these questions marketing people are always asking us, like, who's your avatar? What's your USP? Who's your target market? Actually, 80-20 can play a huge part in answering those questions, because like for that IT company, for example, solicitors and accountants were their main whales. So if you think about it, they're willing to pay a bit more. Obviously, the IT company can provide value to them. They're paying more. They don't take up huge time and resources, so they're a really good client. So when you think about it, feeding that back to the marketing people, if they're saying, who's your best client? It's a solicitor. Where do you provide most value? Well, they value, because we can protect their IT system, so all their client sensitive information is protected. So they're going to value what we do. We're very good at that. So it helps to answer a lot of those. 80-20 can help answer a lot of those marketing questions around who you should be going after.
What would you say? Yeah, I totally agree. That's awesome. What do you like for you personally? There's great satisfaction when you're able to deliver a solution like you've described to our viewers. Yeah. What motivates you to just keep doing it? What are the factors that are going? Because you obviously make changes in people's business that change their whole profit picture. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm just passionate. I mean, I love, even though I call myself a recovering accountant, okay, I didn't want to do accounting work. I discovered 20 years ago. Yeah. But still, I love numbers, and I'm very good at analyzing numbers. And I often say to people, it's like, a business is a bit like a bucket with holes in it, okay? And when you pour water into it, what's going to happen? The water is going to start pouring out of the holes, right? You hold it up, you're going to have water pouring out everywhere. So I'm quite good at spotting where the water is pouring out and then plugging those holes. And I love that. And I mean, the thing that probably gives me most satisfaction in 80-20 are those people who take on board, I say firing the sardines, but you want to move them up or move them out. So like, I told you the story about the printer in Mrs. Murphy, like, that price went from €70. First it went to 140, and then a month later we increased it to 200. And those people, when they came along, we know that they weren't going to pay it. So we said, look, there's another printer down the road. So we used to always laugh about it amongst ourselves, the owners, because we were saying that he's our competitor, and they were sending him customers, right? And that competitor was probably going, that lot are mad up there, But like, we knew that he was probably charging the woman €70 as well and losing money. So it's kind of like the sardines is probably the most interesting part of this. But you know what? I love helping people, Pete. It transforms their business in terms of their profits, which means they have more cash, which means they can put that aside for their retirement, or their business is going to be more valuable if they sell it. And like, that's where I'm at. I'm at the stage now where I'm, I love what I do, but I'm starting to think more and more about when I step back. And I know I want to go to Portugal and play golf. right? Spain or Portugal. So
Yes.
all my clients have their own equivalent. One guy wants to buy a camper van. So I often say to people, that's what he wants. What's your camper van? So I want to help people get their, whatever their camper van is. And quite often they need more profit in their business. And like 80-20 is by far the fastest, best way to just turbo boost your profit. So you have better decisions for you and your loved ones.
Yeah, I totally, I could go on all day with just somebody.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic and philosophy of business. And I wanted our viewers, because it hit me like 2 years ago when Jeff said, the 4-hour work week, that's an 80-20. I went, what? Yeah. And it just didn't dawn on me. I thought he was like, just work 4 hours a week, when I first, but it was changing him, sharing that. So just share with our viewers, because everybody's heard of Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week. Why does that book fall into your category?
Yeah, well, it's a fabulous book. If you read the first section of that, goes back to Tim when he had a wholesale business. This was before he was famous. And he would admit he was working 80 hours a week. He had 120 customers. And what Tim was doing is he was chasing them all for sales, right? He was phoning them and messaging them and whatever. So he was chasing them all and he was stressed. And he actually took a day off, okay? He said, and he realized that 5 of his 120 customers were giving him 90% of his sales. Okay, so he told the 115, he contacted them all. Instead of him chasing them, I think Tim, contacted them all, emailed them or whatever, and said, if you want to order this month, just email, or fax was still being used at the time. But I think he said fax. And a couple of those people were upset or whatever, but he said, that's the way it is. And he focused on his 5. And he focused on them. Like I said, the first thing you do is identify your whales, sell more to them, talk to them, find out what their needs are. And that's exactly what Tim did. And within a couple of months, I think he doubled his sales just through those 5. And I think he had his work week was down to 20 hours. It wasn't 4 hours a week, right? He would admit that himself, but it was down to about 20 hours, 25 hours a week. And I think that was a huge catalyst for Tim, actually. And then he went on to write the 4-hour work week and so on. Yeah. But 80-20 is a huge part of his whole philosophy in everything he does.
Wow. I love it. I'm fired up. Why don't you tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you? Because I know that over here in the US, we like 80-20, but we haven't heard whales and sardines.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. And look, I'm quite happy. I mean, I'm quite happy to have I have a consultation with people if they're interested, to see if it's I call it an NCT. I think it's like, maybe for you, it's like emission with our cars over here. They have to be tested. So do you have like an emissions test or something? So it's like a health check for your business. So I'm quite happy to talk to people. My email is neil@quantum.ie. So if anyone's neil@quantum, quantum.ie. If anybody's interested, just message me. The first consultation is always complimentary, and I'm happy to chat with anyone who's interested. Or message me.
Awesome. And we'll put your LinkedIn link and information on there, probably on your website too. But we'll put that on there too.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
You educate people better than I've seen in a long, long time. I think it. Well, just for our viewers, it's the simplicity. I'm a big fan of Jim Quick with Unlimited, and he just talks about the concepts and the pictures and the simplicity, because everybody is like cramming more information in. Like, I got to learn this, and it's like our brains are, no, I can't learn anymore. Take stuff out and put the important thing.
Yeah, I know.
So, okay, what we always like our viewers to get that takeaway from our guests. So what would you like people to take away from our podcast?
I think it's worthwhile just to go and do your analysis, work out your whales and sardines, And the two main things to do are you go and look what else you can do for your existing whales. Yeah, you know what else can you do in terms of helping them, serving them, and with your marketing, whoever your whales are. So if it's solicitors like it was for the AT company, I think you should focus your marketing attention on whales, just on finding more whales. They're the two main, well, three advices: do the analysis, sell more to your whales, and then focus your marketing on finding new whales.
Wow, this is a real treat, Neil. Thank you so much. It made my Saturday, and now I can fly off to Florida and have a good time and know that I'll sleep better tomorrow night.
Yeah, brilliant. And look, thank you very much. You can tell how probably fired up I do. I just love, how passionate I am about 80/20. I'm a huge fan, and I enjoyed so much chatting to you, and hope your listeners and viewers enjoyed as well, and enjoy that sunshine in Florida.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Neil. Appreciate you being a guest on our show.